Paul McCartney has often said that Pepper was inspired by Pet Sounds. So there was this, the competition makes for good music, and that's what they were doing. Literally, when he heard Pet Sounds, he was like, "We got to do better." It was his. He was the one who came up with the whole idea of them being another band, being Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and then I told you when the Beach Boys heard it, supposedly they heard it, very early on, and
They all sat
they
down.
all sat there in quiet, and somebody in the room, I think it was Brian Wilson, said, "Fuck, what are we going to do now?" And Brian was like, "Well, my next project is going to be," and that's what he was working on when the record label just, the pressure got to him,
That's crazy.
I know, it's amazing. Nowadays you can go years without an album and you'll still have your fans. Back in those days, they honestly believed that if you didn't put an album out or two every year, that kids would forget about you and go on to whoever the next big thing was. It was like you had to sort of, even Sgt. Pepper. I mean, the first two songs they recorded for Pepper was Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane. And George Martin said he used to come around and talk. I saw him at Berkeley, the School of Music here. He said the worst decision he ever made was to give those two songs to Capitol because they were complaining that there hadn't been a Beatles album in over 6 months. Can you imagine that? Oh, after Rubber Soul and Revolver in '66, the 6-month period had gone by, and they were like, "Oh, you got to give us something." And he said, "Fine," just like Brian Wilson, "Here's these two," and they put it out as a single. And so in those days, they thought, well, since they already bought it as a single, our fans, we're not going to put it on the album. We're not going to make them buy it again, which nobody would think that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you imagine, let's just say Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields were on Pepper. I mean, it's already one of the greatest albums of all time. But with those two songs on it, I mean, say it took the place of When I'm 64, Penny Lane, and side two, instead of opening with Within You, Without You, the Harrison sitar thing, which is good. Imagine if side two opened with Strawberry Fields.
Untouchable.
It's just untouchable.